Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much. So we are coming for the second session today for mini conference. My name is Yogantara Setia Dharmawan. You can call me Yoga. Well, I'm very happy today, and I feel honored to be able to discuss and share among all the Queensland scholars here. So thank you very much for the moderator from first session, Mr. Hakim, and also for the both speakers, Mrs. Cecilia and Mr. Gunawan. That was a very exciting discussion, yeah, for the first session. So we hope that for this second session, we will be able to discuss more the interesting topics from both two speakers. Well, let me introduce a little bit about myself. Uh, I'm very excited today. Why? Because I was also one of the Queensland scholars back in 2017, and I was also part of ISAC, Indonesian Student Association of QUT. And then now I see the ISAC's progression over the years, and what makes me happy is ISAC now has shown some impressive progress regarding its program, right? So hopefully, thanks also to our sponsors today from Kelas Bersama kita, Anak Brisbane, Sendok Garpu, and also from kemahasiswaan UI as well to support our mini conference today. And also we don't uh, don't move for only to the session because we still have the second day tomorrow for interesting topics. Uh, Before we start the second session, I would like to share to you the profile of our speakers today. First speaker is Sari Nurulita, that she will share you interesting topic. And for me, I think it's very relevant for our country in Indonesia as agrarian country, right, which has strong agriculture field. Let me read her curriculum vitae first. So Sari Nurulita SP MSE. She did her bachelor degree at IPB University in Bogor, and also she did her Master of Science at same university back in 2014. And then her research interest is around plant virology, phytopathology, and also molecular biology. And now she is currently a PhD student at QAAFI, the University of Queensland at UQ. She is also working as a lecturer at IPB University. And then I will also read for our second speaker today. The second speaker, we also talk about the contestation of women as leaders in Muslim society. Her name is Mrs. Fitri Haryana Oktaviani. Well, I think it is also appealing topic as well to be discussed today among us, because as we know, Indonesia, as biggest Muslim society, we have many women public figures, right? And many potential too in the future who will contribute more and contribute amazingly to our beloved country. But sometimes maybe we know need to deal with feminine subjectivity sometimes, and we can't hear what that Mr. Fitri will share about us regarding the contestation of women as leader later in the second round of this session. Before we start, I will share to you our session will be divided into two rounds. The first round will be delivered by our first speaker, and the speaker will have around 30 minutes to talk about their topics. And also next we can discuss, we have around maybe 15 minutes to discuss about the first topics, and then we will move to the second speaker, and then we can discuss more if we still have any time. So for the audience, please feel free to share your question on the comment tabs on the YouTube, right? So without our further ado, I will invite the first speaker today, Mrs. Sari Nurulita, SPMSI. So now, please welcome. Time is yours.
Hi, Mas Yoga. Thank you so much for having me in this session.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy as to meet. So is it clear enough, my voice?
Yes,
You?
yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, cool. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Now please start. You will have around 30 minutes, and then maybe you can also share. Maybe later we can get some question. I will read it to you as well.
hang on. I would like to share my screen. Give me a second. Give me a second.
Okay.
Sorry,
Well,
there's something
I think I can
problem.
hear you. Let me.
Uh, something
So
trouble in my Chrome.
okay. So I can try. I will try to share the material for you. Let me check.
Yeah, I'm really sorry. I got trouble in my Chrome.
So is it? Can you see my screen now? Maybe the operator can help us regarding this presentation issue. Actually, I have shared your slides here. Okay, this is Mrs. Sari. Your slide is already there, right? So you can start now. I will help you to click the material, the slides. Hello, Mrs. Sari. Mrs. Sari, can you see your slide here? Because your slide is already there.
Hello?
Hello? Yeah? Sudah
Yeah,
clear?
I'm really sorry. Something trouble in my Google Chrome and it's not responding yet.
Okay. It's okay. Actually, I already shared your slide here. Could you please maybe you can see it on the YouTube or so while waiting for Mrs. Sari to prepare her slide for the audience. So basically, plant pathology
Okay,
is
can you share my screen, Mas Yoga?
okay.
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah. It's clear. Your voice is clear here. So I will stop sharing. Maybe Mrs. Sari will share the slide herself. I mean. So
Okay. Uh, okay, I'm sorry for my for the problem with my screen. Okay, maybe I would like to start my presentation today. How?
can you see your slides, Mrs. Sari? Because it's already there. Your
Hello, Mas.
slides,
I can't hear you.
uh, your slide is already on the screen. I can help you to click your slides. If can you see your slides?
Yes, I can see from the YouTube.
Okay. You can just
Okay,
start.
can you please help me to
Sure.
assisting me
Yes, sure. I will
to
help you
share the
to.
screen? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think we have a problem with Mrs. Sari, ladies and gentlemen. So please stay with us. While waiting for Mrs. Sari, I would like to share you some insights about our mini conference today. I think now in Brisbane is already at p.m., right? So maybe if it is a class, maybe it is the what is it? It's sleepy time, right? But I hope you still with us today because both speaker will share us their insights about the material. For example, for Mrs. Sari, Nurulita will share us about the plant pathology. As we know, for me itself, pathology term is regarding about the health for human being, right? But then it is very important as well that we need to understand well about the pathology for plantation. As we know that Indonesia is agrarian country, we really need to make sure that our resources regarding the agriculture is not only have a uh, good result in terms of the harvesting, but also it still contains the uh, nu- nutrition itself in the plantation itself. And also maybe Mrs. Sari next in the material we share as well about the background about the plant pathology. There you go.
Okay, okay, thank you so much. I'm really sorry for a little bit problem with my slide sharing. Okay, I would like to repeat again. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Sari Nurulita, or you can just call me Ita. And I'm a PhD student at the University of Queensland. And in this session, I would like to share my knowledge about the plant pathology and why is it important. And don't worry, is it about the plant disease? It's not the human disease. But I'm really grateful because since the pandemic, most of us already understand and familiar with the disease terms. Okay, first of all, before I talk about the plant disease or the concept of the plant pathology, I would like to give you a very simple question. Have you ever seen your plants or veggies getting sick? Maybe if you walk in your backyard, you will find your tomato plants has a symptoms with the wilt symptoms, or when you open your fridge, you will find your chili with a wrinkle and fungi in its surface. Or the other one, you also find your cabbage getting rotten with a very bad smells. And then you will think, what happened with my veggies? Are they because you store those very quite long? Or it's just because uh, some pathogen infects your veggies? To answer your question, now in this session, I would like to share about the simple and general about the concept of the plant pathology that maybe all of you is not really familiar with that. The first one, I would like to introduce with the plant pathology, or as known as the phytopathology. This is the science that study of the organisms and of the environmental factors that cause disease in plant. And in this science, it tries to combine and develop the methods, equipments, and materials to get the main target or to get the goal, which is to avoid or to control the disease. as well as to help the productivity of the crops. After you know and understand about the plant pathology, don't forget you should also to understand about the concept of the plant disease. In this concept, we have three keys or three important things that we have to understand. The first one, plant disease is the situation or the condition when the ability of the cells of a plant or a plant part that it cannot carry out the physiological functions because there is a disruption continuously. And it can be caused by causal agents, either probiotic or abiotic factors. And the continuously of the disruption, it will develop and produce a symptom. In this picture, you can see the differences between in the left side of yours. Maybe you can see where the plant is normal and healthy, and the other side is the symptoms when normal is getting sick. And to get more understanding about the plant disease or in the plant pathology, we also have to understand about how the plant can get sick. To get there, we have to understand the concept about the plant disease triangle, which is it also can be applied in the human disease that they also have the disease triangle concept. This concept has three main factors. The first one is the pathogen, and the second one is environment, and the last one is host. Because in this session, I'm talking about the plant pathology, the host must be plants. The disease can be occurred when the three of them supports each other. For example, plants getting sick when the pathogen is very virulent and the environment support the pathogen to spread and develop, and the plant as a host, it's really susceptible. However, the plant disease can be will not occur if the pathogen, even though pathogen is virulent and environment support with the pathogen, if the host is resistant, the plant or maybe the severity of the plant disease can be suppressed. So it's not really bad. This concept maybe we can also relate with the human disease as well. So if we have the very good immunity, we will can still healthy even though we get a very mild symptom. So hopefully this concept make you more understand. And then it's not only about the human disease that really influence in our life. For example, in 2020, when the corona infect all of people, but the plant disease also has taken a part of humans' history. In this session, I would like to share two phenomenon stories in the plant disease. The first one comes from the Great Britain story. This is about the Irish potato famine, that it happens because the infection of potato leaf blight that caused by fungi called Phytophthora infestans. The impact of this disease, it caused the hunger in the Ireland, and you can see because most of the people because most of the potato plantation in the Ireland get infected and outbreak, most of people are hungry. And we can see from the map, the red one is the decreasing of the population because people can't have enough food. And you can see in the picture below, when the situation was really chaos, most of people needs food. And this situation also really triggered most of the Irish migrate to America. So it's just because the plant disease. So when you see the phenomenon currently, it's not only about the human disease, plant disease also has a huge impact in the human history. The second one is the coffee rush. We know that British love drinking coffee. And we can see in the picture, even they also built the first coffee house in the Oxford in 1650. And most of their coffee were imported from Sri Lanka. However, at that time, the coffee plantation in Sri Lanka were infected by the rust, which is Hemileia fastatrix. It is a fungi, and the symptoms, like you can see in the picture. And these situations makes the farmers in Sri Lanka change the plantation of coffee. They change to plant the tea, and it's also influenced in the British culture. They also changed their from drinking coffee to drinking tea, and now you can see they have very famous afternoon tea culture. From this phenomenon, I hope we have a very understanding about how is the importance of the plant disease in the human's life. And we also knows that plants, health plants is really important because the foods that we consume every day, 80% was produced from the plants. And the oxygen that we use for breath is 98% also produced from the plants. And when the plants getting sick or destroyed by the pests and disease, the yield loss can reach almost 40%. And if we convert in the money, the FAO has make a data that the trade loss in agriculture products, it can be reached more than 200 billion US dollar each year. That's why in this year, the United Nations General Assembly declared 2020 is a mark of a International Year of Plant Health. So this is reflect that how is the importance of the plant health in human life. And as a millennial, or it's getting popular with the generation Z, what we can do, what's contribution that we can do to support the plant health. In this session, I divided the first group. It's from the academia group, and the farmer. From the academia group, which comes from the scientist, student, and lecturer, we can contribute by develop the research and development for the biotechnology to create or to develop the resistance of the plants, and how to create the better crop cultivation, and then how to make a better plants, to better the plant performance. But we also still have to consider it, the environment sustainability. And as a farmer, as a young generation, I saw most of people now getting familiar with UAV or unmanned aerial vehicle, or we can be also familiar with drone, or also known as a drone. They use to make a better agriculture. And the second group, we can see the contribution if we work in the institution, maybe for example in the plant quarantine, and or if you're running a business in the agriculture, or even if you are a traveler, please consider about the plant pathology in this session by monitoring of the plant disease distribution, or for the distribution, or if you bring the crops across the border, or if you make a trading in the agriculture crops, please consider about the plant health, sanitary, and phytosanitary. And this is my very short presentation. And the last one, I remember last year I joined in the phytopathology class, and my lecturer said that agriculture is very essential in our life and it's not optional. And protecting plants means protecting life. Thank you. Maybe we can more by the discussion.
Thank you very much for Mrs. Sari Nurulita for your.
Yeah, I'm really sorry in the beginning.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, everything is already clear now. Actually, we have one question from Mr. Wawan.
Yes.
We directly to the question, right? What is the role of ecological considerations in agriculture productivity and crop health?
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Wawan, for your question. Yes, ecology is really important because if we cultivate or in the farming, we have really to consider with the precision of the lands and with the abundance of the organisms because crops can harvest it or can be produced very good if there is a support from the ecological. For example, plants can we need insects to pollinate the plants, so plant can produce the food. I mean the something that we can harvest. And then we also have to consider about the precision of the lands because every plant needs a different lands as well, the precision of the land.
Okay, thank you for the response, Mrs. Sari. Hopefully, it actually answered the Mr. Wawan question about this. Actually, also interested in one of your slides previously regarding the the coffee drinking in British.
Yes.
That was changed to tea, right? Due to the what is it? Due to the plant disease in the coffee itself. So how bad was that? The so it can if affect the what is it? The majority of society to change their daily habits into another habits.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, actually, the coffee that they use in the British, I mean, British use the coffee actually from Sri Lanka at that time, and because the infection of the coffee rust, it caused outbreak, which is they can't harvest the coffee at all. So the farmers in Sri Lanka try to convert their land from coffee plantation become tea plantation. So they try to convert from coffee become tea, and absolutely, it also changed the British. So they try to start consume tea, and just because this, now they have the culture like afternoon tea, which is very famous right now.
Yeah, so there is a role from government as well, right, to push the society due to the disease because they change the what is it, the agriculture area as well to become tea, right? So there is what is it? There is a government role as well in pushing the society to move to tea rather than the coffee itself.
Yes, actually, the government role is really important in the plant pathology, especially if we are talking about plant pathology. It's not only push the society, but if we correlate with situation right now, the government has a plays important role to make a rule about the sanitary or phytosanitary, especially like in this era when people can cross the border easily. They have to protect their country by making a good management in the quarantine. So people really can consider do not bring the disease from the or biomaterials to other countries.
Yeah.
That's why, like when we and the rule is really important as well for the certification. So when you plant the plants, it's not only about the plant can produce the high productivity, but you also have to consider about the plant health because even though you let's say you wanna plant this plant can produce a high productivity, but if it's getting sick because no health certification, it will not. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Sari. So we now move to next question. So
Yeah.
there's a question from Mrs. Januar Primanda. Very nice presentation, Ita. How you going to implement the results of your study in Indonesia?
Thank you, Mbak Prima. Yeah, actually, this presentation is not part of my research, but my research also still correlate with the plant disease. So actually, my research is about the seed selection to improve the performance of the plants, and I also doing research in the plant virology in the seeds. So I would like to implement my study in here when I back to Indonesia. I would like to develop the disease detection in the plant because it's really important. We can see right now that the detection technique is really important, especially to detect the corona. It's as important as like when we have to develop the detection of the in the plant as well.
Yeah. So basically, it also relate to the next question, Mrs. Sari from Arimbia Shani. How do we apply this knowledge to our daily life? Maybe one of the proposal from Mrs. Sari that she will later develop some detection, right? But then, what kind of what is it? The easiest way from general people like us who doesn't really,
Yes.
yeah, to
Yes.
daily life.
Yeah, because from based on my result that the good seeds or healthy seeds will produce the better productivity and with the less infection of the disease. So maybe the easiest way that I can apply when I back to Indonesia, I would like to give a suggestion. Please plant the healthy seeds if you would like to get the better result. It's not only about the good performance, but the good performance has to include about the healthy seats.
Yeah. So interesting. I think there is some interesting question as well here, Mrs. Sari, from Mr. Roland. We still have two question more. Yeah. How do we deal with plant disease? There are many farmers that still using chemical substance to cope with the plant disease that will harm people if we consume the result of the plantation. So what do you think about this?
To be honest, it is difficult. It's difficult. It is difficult. Yes, we try to promote the utilization of the plant microbe that can trigger the immunity of the plants. But it's difficult actually if we apply in the reality. So if we like educate the farmers usually need something that instantly. So it's really challenge. Yeah, that's my answer. It's difficult.
Challenging,
In it.
yeah.
But we still try to educate the farmers. We can
Yeah.
use the some alternative as well.
Yes. I do really agree that what is it? The understanding first from the farmers regarding the harm of the what is it, chemical substance is also really important, right? Because
Yes.
I also did some what is it? Some community development as well back in 2 years ago, I guess. We helped some local farmers in Lamongan, East Java, to
Mm-mm.
develop what is it? Natural fertilizer. But then they feel that it is more complex in terms of making it, and then it also requires more steps. So they choose the easiest way, just to buy the chemical and then put it on the plant.
Yeah, I didn't say that you don't have to 100%. I mean, you can't use the synthetic chemical for 100%, but we try to give the some alternative to reduce the usage of the synthetic fertilizer, synthetic pesticide, something like that, to minimize the effect to the environment.
Right. So, Mrs. Sari, we move to the next question. I think this more about the challenges that you face regarding your research or in terms of the plant pathology itself. From Mr. Gunawan, what is the
Yes.
impact of COVID-19 to your research? Yeah, like for example, more organic medicine to be developed for plantation, for example.
Mm. Yeah, actually, the impact of COVID to my research in the beginning when there was lockdown in the beginning of March. So I couldn't go to lab very quite often. And then, but to answer about the sorry, Mas, can you read
Mas,
the yes?
yes.
Okay, organic medicine. Oh, I don't know about the organic medicine. I can't say because I think it's more related about the pharmacy or something like that. Yeah, but for decorative plants to be planted, yeah, maybe for planting the decorative plants, we can we can do in the middle, like in the weekend, just to relieve our stress during the COVID-19. Yeah, everyone I think is tough. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully it can answer Mr. Gunawan question. But I think after the session we can still have uh, to discuss more, right? If Mr. Gunawan want to follow up his question. And
Yes.
now we to Mr. Wawan again, Mr. Sari.
Yeah.
Are the challenges of plant disease management faces ever growing? So I think what are the challenges for plant disease management in the future?
In the future, yeah. So actually, the component of the plant disease management is a lot. It's not only about the provide the plant health, but or plant health materials, but if we are talking about the disease management, we also have to collaborate with the government rules, how to educate the farmers, and yeah, the most challenge if we would like to build the first one from my area is to promote that plant health is included in the seed certification, because until now the seed certification is only about the agronomy or the productivity, but it's not included or with the plant health certification. And then the second one is the educate the farmers. And sometimes it's also the challenge when we would like to collaborate between university, government, and the farmer, because sometimes the interest each side, yeah, it's different. Even though the goal is to decrease the disease in the plant, but yeah, it's still a challenge.
Yeah, yeah. The collaboration among all the units, all the stakeholders, right? Not only from the farmers, but government and also the agriculture businesses as well, as you mentioned in your slides before, right? So
Yes,
the yeah, the what is it? The holistic collaboration need to be what is it? Integrated maybe or solid to
yeah,
make
that's
sure.
why. Yes, that's why. Like when I developed the detection, I remember. So when I developed the detection technique about the how to make a robust and quick detection, especially in the plant pathogen. Hopefully, it can be implemented in the plant quarantine. So whenever they get the biomaterials or plants from other countries, they can select or make a screening quickly.
Okay, thank you for your explanation, Mr. Sari. Hopefully, it can answer Mr. Wawan question. We have
Thank you so
actually
much.
interesting question again from Mrs. Fitri.
Yes, thank you.
Do we know if the produce our consume have had their plant disease during their growth? As maybe as a general people who don't understand pathology, for example, how do we know that the plant that we consumed have had
Yes. Yeah, thank you so much. The first thing that I forgot to mention that plant disease, before I answer the question, I would like to mention first that plant disease is not zoonosis. It means the disease in the plants will not infect either human or animal. It's different with the sometimes disease like zoonosis that they can transfer between human to animal to human, but the plant disease is different. And yeah, it is plant disease is not really common or familiar with among us. That's why I bring this topic. And some of the pathogen, like when you see the chili that in the chili fruit, in the fruit of the chili, it's a latent pathogen. Sometimes we already know when the chili getting in the generative, they will appear in the generative. So that's why before we plant, we always campaign to use the seed, the healthy seeds. But we never know. Sometimes early detection also we can use, but in the for the general consumer or general people, sometimes we can know the our plants are already infected in the generative stage. So sometimes we don't know.
Yeah, that's still hard to know, right? Because the easiest way maybe when we go to the market to buy some some what is it, the plantation result, for example, like chili, we just see the appearance, right? Oh, this is good, and then, oh, this is one bad. So we take it out from the basket, for example. Maybe that's we never know what is it exactly. I think how
Yeah.
to. Yeah. So hopefully it can answer your question, Mrs. Fitri. Oh, once more, there is a question from
Oh, thank you.
Primanda. If plant disease not influence human health, it means it's safe to consume the chili that has some disease as the picture in your slides. So, what do you respond, Mrs. Sari?
Yes, but the quality is not good, and maybe it's influence on the taste as well. And uh, most of the plant disease is not influence on the human health, but it will influence on the taste and the quality and the price. But I remember one of the plant disease caused by fungi in the cerealia. They produce the toxin. I forgot the name, but it is harmful for the cattle from the toxin of the fungi. But mostly the disease in the vegetables that we found in the market, it's okay. I mean, if they are infected, it's still okay to consume. Just eliminate the part of the disease. We can still consume the rest of the part of the veggies.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
maybe
So
just the quality.
yeah,
Yeah,
and the price also also dropped significantly, right?
yeah, yeah,
Basically, it's safe for the audience, for those of you who want to consume, yeah, some maybe the second grade of vegetables, for example, right? It is still safe for your health, but then maybe it can uh, influence the taste of the result of the food that use that vegetables. So, Mr. Sari, I also interested one more that you mentioned earlier in terms of the plant management. That because I also my background is also in IT. You mentioned that the use of IT, for example, drone
yeah.
in agriculture is really useful. So, what do you think about that? How I mean, in Indonesia, in Indonesia, for example, how well it could be implemented.
Mm, as long as I know, now they started to use drone to make imaging for the. I'm not quite sure, but for my research, a little part of my research, I use drone to imaging the disease incidence and the disease severity of my plants So I can scale the disease severity from the quality of the image that was taken from the drone.
I see.
So as confirmation, yeah. But
So
it's just for very little part in my research.
yeah, so like
Oh, sorry.
okay, so like image capturing, right? Image capturing from the whole land to
Yes,
detect the area.
yes. But as long as I also see some of the publications, they use the image to predict the disease incidence in the grape or to make the disease indexing by the quality of the leaf that they produce from the imaging.
Yeah. Maybe in the future we can see as well, right? The drone could replace the farmer, maybe, but we don't know, right?
Sure, sure,
Term of,
sure.
yeah, plan the plantation itself. So yeah, let's see what
Yeah.
the biotechnology will bring us. Okay, I think that's all for the first round. Thank you very much, Mrs. Sari. But still,
Thank you so much.
uh,
Yeah, I'm really sorry in the beginning with the
no
problem in the
worries, no
beginning.
worries.
Yeah.
So see you again.
See ya.
Maybe you can still with us. Maybe do you want to discuss it
Sure.
with the second speaker? Now I would like to invite the second speaker for our session today, Mrs. Fitri Oktaviani. But then I will read her curriculum vitae first. Now she is a PhD student in Gender and Organizational Communication at University of Queensland Business School. So currently she is in the final years. So we wish you all the best for your research, Mrs. Fitri. So you can finish your PhD soon, right? She is a lecturer in Brawijaya University from 2007, and also she did her master in University of Queensland as well. And then now, wow, I think I found interesting one here. She got uh, conducting research in community service, including a charge for KPK uh, in campaigning the campus integrity in 2016. Wow, that's amazing, right? And also, uh, she she did her bachelor degree in State University of Malang in Bachelor of Arts, and then for her master degree, she got Dean Commendation of High Achiever all semesters in a row. Wow, amazing, right? So without further ado, Mrs. Fitri will share us about the contestation of women leaders, right, in Muslim society. So, Mrs. Fitri, time is yours.
Thank you, Mas Yoga. I appreciate the introductions. So now I'm going to share my screen. So can you see my screen now? I think you should be able to see it, okay? So this is actually my project for my PhD study. And I've been doing this in the past 4 years. So can you imagine it's been like immersed? But I've been really enjoying doing this thesis, and it's been really challenging. It's been really fun, and it's fulfilling journey for me in particular because this is something that I care much about. And the topic of my dissertation or my current presentation is about the contestation of women as leaders in a Muslim society. By Muslim society is Indonesia has majority of Indonesian people are Muslims, like around 87% of it, although we are not considered as an Islamic country by constitution. And then our presentation today consists of 5 parts. The first, I'm talking about the background of this study. And then the second, I'm going to just touch a little bit on the literature review. And then I'm going to talk about the methodology of how I did my research. And then I will present my finding, and then I'll present the conclusion. So now let's have a look at moment from all of these three news from three different news publications. So it's about, some people that still disagree with women being there in the leadership positions. This is 2020 now, but why is it still happening? Feminism has been around in Indonesia for 100 years, but then why does contestation of women leadership rights in a Muslim society like Indonesia remain an issue? Is that because A, Islam is sexist? Or, hey, Islam is not sexist? Well, people can have different opinion, but actually the answer is not that simple. When we talked about the empirical studies actually reject the claim that the regulation of life by Islamic values hinders women equality. It has been proven by quantitative studies conducted in studies like economics. It's actually more complicated than that. It's basically the combination of education, of the lack of social development that can actually hinder women's equality. But Islam by itself doesn't really hinder women equality. And also, if you look at the country like Indonesia, we have already got rights for political rights, like for voting, since before the independence. It means the people in our country acknowledge women's right even before the independence, and it's not like any other developed countries such as the UK or the USA, where women have to really fight during suffrage movements in order for them to be granted voting rights. So we are actually in advance in terms of this. And then also, if you look at the data, the percentage of Indonesian businesswomen in top leadership positions is very high. Do you know how many is that in 2017? We ranked second in terms of the number of female senior leadership of the world, second after Russia. How cool is that? But despite of all this advancement, people will wonder, why do still there are a lot of people still reject women leadership? How could that be possible? What is the problem here? So that's what makes me interested in studying this phenomenon. So to understand the contestation of the women as leaders, we have to understand the underlying assumption of femininity. Wait, what is femininity? So you, women, are not born with femininity. You, men, are not born with your masculinity. All of those things are social constructions. What do you mean by that? Well, you are born as baby. Babies don't know whether you have to wear pink dress, or baby don't know whether you have to talk in certain ways or you cannot be leaders. Babies don't know that. Who make them think like that when they grow up? Their parents, their family, their society around them. So that's what we mean by that femininity is a socially constructed. So we have to understand what are the assumptions about women attached attributes and characteristics. And then the second, given those assumptions, what should women do or not do? Okay, so we have to understand that issue first in order to understand the issue of contestation of women as leaders in a Muslim society like Indonesia. Therefore, my study is guided by three main research questions. First, I have to look at the public discourses, the discourses that people talked about. How do online media actually discursively construct various forms of idealized femininities in the representation of women leaders? Because we read online media a lot. I mean, you can actually have a look at, public discourse anywhere, but it's easier for me to do a research if I can do somewhere and go somewhere and I choose online media. Okay, how do actually online media prescribe femininity? And then the second, I have to ask women leaders themselves, because this is a social construction. They discursively construct their femininity. So how do women leaders themselves discursively construct and embody their version of feminine subjectivity? Embody means use their body to construct their feminine subjectivity. Okay, and because my study is in the area of organizational communication, so my focus of people are people who are working in organizations. Do they really think that, you know, women can't be leaders in Indonesia at the moment? What do they think about it? And then finally, I have to look at the roles of organization in the constructions of women leaders' feminine subjectivities, because they are working in organizations. That's basically it. And then in framing my study, I use a theoretical lens called critical post-structural discourse perspective of identity. I know it sounds really complicated, but it is really complicated. But actually, the premise is very simple. Basically, you understand about the importance of language and discourse in constructing your social reality, in constructing about femininity. Remember that this is social constructionism, okay? So I mentioned earlier that, you know, female babies are born not to be feminine, but they are socialized to be feminine. So the critical post-structural discourse perspective of identity actually acknowledges the importance of language and discourse in constructing femininity itself. So I believe you know the meaning of language, but what is discourse? So discourse can mean anything, but basically discourse is a set of interrelated statements that can form objects as they speak. What does it mean? Well, let's give you an example, globalization. Can you see globalization? No, you can't. But can you feel it? Yes, you can. Is globalization just a word? No, it's not. It's not just a word, but it's a discourse, because it has a lot of statements that as you speak to it, as you speak about globalization, you know the impact of globalization. You can feel it. When you talk about globalization, you talk about interconnectedness of the world. You talk about the interconnectedness of, you know, economy, something like that. So, you know, when people talk about globalization, you know the impact, although you can't see it, but you know it's there, and you know it's more than just a word. It's a set of practices as well. A practice, words, and you know, statements that all combine that form a coherent body of thoughts, although it's not as strong as an ideology, for instance, but it's still quite, you know, coherent. So that's what I mean by discourse. And then this study is also critical. What it means by critical, it means that I investigate the notion of power, that power belongs to people. It disperses in networks of people. Like, for instance, female women have power. Of course they do. Look at them. They become leaders. But also men. So does men. They have power as well. Like also religious groups, they also have power. Also your family, they have power. So power are dispersed. But we have to remember that we talk about female here, and most of the time female are in a position that is a disadvantage in comparison to male. It has been there like that in all countries all around the world for hundreds of years, if not thousands. Although now the dynamic is still changing, but we have to acknowledge there is still some form of disadvantage in terms of powers for a certain group of people. And then those people who are winning are those who can produce a hegemonic power. It means that you feel that you are voluntarily subscribe to their persuasion. That's basically what it is. So you don't have to force someone to subscribe to your belief, but if you can influence someone, for instance, through social media, through online media, then you have the hegemonic power. And it can be possessed by anywhere, everywhere, everybody in the community, as long as they are smart enough to do that. And then when we talk about feminine subjectivity, this theory also talk about, look at this tiny little smiley figure here. This is feminine subjectivity. This is femininity. This is you, female woman. Your femininity is actually, in this perspective, influenced by the micro discourse, the meso discourse, and the macro discourse. Oh, what else are these? Like, what are these? So macro discourses are the ones, like I mentioned, globalization. It's discourses that occur in the level of national or probably in the level of international. For instance, globalization, discourses that occur in international. In terms of your feminine subjectivity, it can be influenced by the discourse of feminism. it's not only Western feminism, but remember, Indonesia also has feminism since like Arden Kartini, we call it emancipasi, right? So it can be influenced by the discourse of feminism, but it can also be influenced by the discourse of national and cultural values, such as your value as a Javanese, your values as a Muslim, your values as a Chinese Christian, and so forth. So they also influence your feminine subjectivity. And also recently we have what we call as Islamism. This is not Islamism as in your religion of Islam, but the growing influence of the Islamic ideology that is coming to Indonesia, especially from the Middle East and from the Arab Wahhabian since 2010. You know that, and it has been really, really, allowed in the politics. But then it also can influence who you are and what your feminine subjectivity is. And also, of course, from neoliberal post-feminism that is coming from the West. What it means by neoliberal post-feminism is basically the value that is one step beyond feminism that can support but also hinder feminism, because you frame yourself as feminist but not really feminist, because you still think yourself, you have to promote yourself, you have to do your personal branding or something like that. Okay, so that is neoliberal post-feminism. So those macro discourses can influence your feminine subjectivity or your masculine subjectivity, but my focus is on feminine subjectivity. And also, if you're working in an organization, because this is my studies about organization, whatever happens in your organization also influence your feminine subjectivity. And then finally, your interactions with colleagues, with family and friends also can influence your subjectivity or your feminine subjectivity, okay? Now, that's enough about theory. So how did I do my research? So I do a method called Foucauldian discourse analysis. This is a highly controversial method, but for some reason I'm drawn to it because I feel that's the method that really fits with the way I'm thinking about this topic. There are a lot of types of discourse analysis, and if you are from linguistics, then you will know different type of discourse analysis. If you're a discursive psychologist, you also know different types of discourse analysis. That's not my point here. So my point is that I'm doing Foucauldian discourse analysis through 2 empirical studies. So I did 2 studies. The first study is I did online media analysis. Remember, my first research question is about the public discourse construction of femininity. And the second is I did interview studies. Now let's have a look at my first study. So, it's about, public discourse constructions of femininity from various different perspectives. So at least I have to sample news media, online news media that have different ideological perspectives. So I chose Compass, which tends to be liberal, left-leaning, Republica, which tend to be in the center, conservative but Islam moderate, and also an alternative media. This is small but quite loud. It's called Voice of Islam or VOAE. So I search articles in their respective websites for using the search terms such as women leaders and the 36 variations of it that relates to femininity and women role and so forth. And then almost 1,000 articles. And then after that, I read and quote them, and I sort out articles that are irrelevant. For instance, article that talks about just news that won't be any good for my study. It won't be relevant. But then I used, because there are so many articles, I have to map these articles using content analysis. I use a software actually produced by UQ researcher called Leximancer. It's a very cool content analysis program. I'll show you the results after this. That basically can visualize your social media or your online media data and make it from bird eye view perspective. So you can have a look at the map of your articles. And then after that, I select key articles. Like I read 60 in-depth articles that I'm gonna do the Foucauldian discourse analysis. And then from the study 2 is an empirical study. I did this last year before the COVID. I went back to Indonesia. I collected data in 9 cities in all 5 provinces in Java, Indonesia. it would be lovely if I can go outside Indonesia, like outside Java, because Indonesia is more than just Java. But then I didn't have enough funding, and then the time restrictions and stuff like that. So it really, really has to be in Java. And my rationalization is that because it's diverse enough in terms of the demographic of the participants and the various organizations they are working on, from profit, non-profit organization, also bureaucratic organization, not bureaucratic, government-owned enterprise, BUMN, as well as some Islamic organization like Sharia organizations. And then initially I got around 56 participants, but then only 38 participants followed up with the interviews. Each of the interview conducted for 60 to 90 minutes. And then I did that thing called Foucauldian discourse analysis. What is it about? Basically, from the public discourse and from the private discourses. And I have to map what are each of the construction of the femininity in each of these. Okay, so how do I do that? So I have a look from their characteristic based on the action orientation. What is achieved from each of the discourses? And then subject positions. How do they position woman or female in these discourses, in each of these discourses? And then what does it impact? How does it impact? What are the constraints and opportunities? And finally, what are the experiences of women when they are positioned within those subjects, within those discourses? Now, the fun part now is about this is the fun part now. This is the Lexi Mentor result. This is taken from all 500 articles, processed into one, and then Lexi Mentor will do this statistic for you. All we need to do is just establish the parameter. And if you look at this, if you look at this map, this is actually the map from all of those articles that I put in there, and you can have a look at all of these bubbles are called the themes. So basically, the themes, each themes talk about similar things. For instance, from the articles that I gathered, when they talk about women leaders, what are they talking about? Oh, these three sub-publications talked about public roles consisting of concepts. Concepts are words and their thesaurus, such as gender, leadership, opportunities, program, and so forth. They are also talking about social economy and politics. They are talking about women domestic roles. They are talking about Indonesia. They're talking about Islam, Jokowi, governance, business administration, and so forth. And then if you look at this position of three publications, you can see that Compass and Republica are positioned very close to this left side, while VOAE is positioned very close to the right side. What does it mean? It means that when they are talking about their articles, when Compass more likely to talk about women opportunities, gender, leadership, and so forth in this side, but VOAE will tend to talk about this side, talk about the women leaders who become leaders or the pawn of foreign interests. Because we know that VOAE tend to be political in nature. So they kind of criticize Jokowi, female ministers such as Ibu Susi and Ibu Sri Mulyani and so forth. They tend to criticize them and think them as the pawn of feminism, the pawn of toxic Western feminism, the pawn of neoliberalism, and so forth. And of course, Republica also talks about, Islam, but in a way different with Republica, with VOAE. They talk about how Islam see women positions as leaders and so forth. Now, what about the results of Foucauldian discourse analysis? So this is the results of FDA from the public discourse. I identify 4 discursive constructions of femininity, ranging from equal femininity, empowered femininity, ethical femininity, and religio-political femininity. So basically, I may have to have a look here so that I won't forget. So equal femininity means that this discourse position women as equals to men. Women and men have equal rights. That's it. So when we talk about women leadership, women can have the same rights to be leaders as men, regardless whatever. Okay, so that's basically the premise of this discourse. And then they can choose to have family life or not. It's really up to them because it's their decision, it's their life. Okay, but then when they have family, they have to make sure the balance of the leadership or the career life and the family life. Okay, so it's visibly influenced by the macro discourses of feminism, either from the West or from Indonesia. It's like hybrid fusion that influence this construction in the online media. And of course, this can be found in Compass and Republica. Neoliberal post-feminism, so influence what the discourse called empowered femininity. It's found predominantly in Compass. It's very similar to equal femininity in terms of the characteristics. And then women are positioned as equal to men, but they can, they can be the men's. They can lead men if they want to. They can be better than men if they want to. That's basically what this discourse is talking about. Okay, and women have rights to be leaders, and if they want to, but then they can use their femininity. They can sell or market their femininity to improve the profitable for themselves or for the company. This is the difference, the different characteristic with the feminine, like the equal femininity. So they can market themselves as someone who is, you can use your femininity to conquer men, to conquer the men's world and something like that. And also, you have to constantly, look at yourself and make sure that you embody the principles of profitability and marketability. So for instance, you can do the personal branding to ensure that you need to be, something that you want to project as someone that is really, really profitable for the company, and, something like that. And then in terms of family life, well, they can have balance between family and usual life, like family and career life or leadership life, but they can return to their family life as a choice. So this discourse emphasizes choice, empowerment, but also marketability, and also Spice Girl kind of girl power. You know what I mean? If you know Spice Girl. And then of course this is predominantly encompassed. And the third one is called ethical femininity. This also can be found in both Compass and Republica. It basically says that it positions women as the partner of men. So female are the partner of men. So you can imagine you have to be married if you want to be a partner of men. So you can be leaders. There is no restrictions for women to be leaders, but women's responsibility is still in the family domain. So you still have to raise your children. You still have to ensure to educate your children, because if your children failed, it's your fault, not your husband's fault. It's different with equal femininity. Well, children's education's responsibility, for both parents. But for this one, it's your job. And then also, female are tasked with a very noble assignment, that is to ensure the moral development of the nation. So like women as ibu bangsa, women of the nation, okay? And it has been in Indonesia since Sukarno, Suharto, and now it's still there in our public discourses. And then that's what I call as women's virtuous burden. So women are tasked with all of these heavy tasks without sharing it with men. And this is influenced by national and cultural discourse, and also, values, and also from Islamic moderate values. Why do I have to call Islamic moderate? Because we have a different type of Islam, influence that's going to be coming in the next construction of femininity. This is, I call it red because it's a dialectical. It means opposing all of these previous constructions. I labeled it as religio-political femininity. So basically, woman is positioned as a creature of God, but then as a creature of God, you have to be under subordinate in comparison to men. So you have to be, you can be partnered to men, but still man is the leader in everything, in public and in private life. Okay. I haven't mentioned for ethical femininity. women can be leaders in the public life, but for the private life, men still be the leader for the ethical femininity. And then for religio-political femininity, they basically say, no, everything is incorrect. So men should be the leaders because women are created not to be leaders. You are created to be followers. So when you are doing something leadership, it's just you got influence from the bad and toxic feminism from the West, something like that. And women are encouraged to stay at home. They can have a higher education if they want to, but there is only for educating the children. Okay. Those are from the public discourse, but what about the women themselves? What do they say about it? Well, basically, women that I interviewed and I categorized the answer can be grouped into 5 types of feminine subjectivities. The first one is independent women. It's basically, have a equal, recursive relationship with equal femininity. It's basically similar with equal femininity. And the other one is political women. It's similar as well, but they bring it one step further by doing something for their organizations or for the society around them, because they believe that women and men are equal and women can have knowledge, similar knowledge. Because, for instance, I interviewed an amazing person, a CEO of a mining company who established a program for female who are working in the mining industry to go to work into the mining because they are actually smarter than a lot of men. That's what she said, not my opinion, okay? That's just what she said. And then she felt really sad because not many women want to go into this industry, but actually their skills are needed. So that's why she's making herself as a political woman by, they made a program and stuff like that for helping female around them to be more equal, like feeling that they are worthy. And then I also interviewed women who I can categorize as enterprising women. For instance, there's a banker that says she managed everything in her family life, like managing the organization. So she's basically having a tight schedule in every single situation for the family life. She also does personal branding through Instagram, through social media. She basically wants to, project her feminine identity and align it with the profitability of her company. And then I also interview women who can be considered as responsible women and pious women, both sharing the same premise with ethical femininity. The difference is just pious women, you frame your responsibility towards God. So you do this, you are doing your leadership, you are doing your work because you believe that this is your, it's part of your ibadah toward God, something like that, okay? And then what about this religio-political femininity? Is this guy over here trying to influence the women's subject? Do they really succeed so far? Not. So all of the women that I interviewed reject all the assumptions by rejecting the claim, no, that's wrong, it's incorrect, or denying the claim, no, that's only in the politics, it doesn't happen in organization life, or probably, no, it's only outside Jakarta. In Jakarta, everything excellent, something like that. There are some people that deny the claim, but there are some others that inflect the claim, such as, well, it's true, there is an ayat that says men leadership over women, but that's only in domestic life, but not in the public life. Now, so then the second part of the question, is that how do then the relationship between public discourse or the personal discourses, and then how do they embody themselves? Well, we think about it, and actually the independent women try to embody professionalism when they're talking about, their roles in the leadership and in the organization. Well, they can, and then also political women dominantly embody empowerment. They want to, feel that they are empowered. And enterprising women, they want to embody marketability. Responsible woman wants to embody respectability, and a pious woman wants to embody the piety. But then, does it mean that only all of this only exists in one person? Well, it's actually not like that at all. So women can combine all of this respectability, all of these dominant discourses, and combine them and making them into persona. How do they embody themselves? For instance, we talk about woman who wants to embody respectability and professionalism. Well, I call it respectable business professionalism. They can embody themselves. They can create a persona like Ibu Sri Mulyani here. Like she's like national, but she's also professional. You know what I mean? Like she's like respectable, but also she's also professional. And but you can also add a piety element on it. You can be respectable, you can be professional, but you can also be pious. For instance, Nurbaya Subakat, the CEO of Nurhayati Subakat, the CEO of Wardah Cosmetic. She looks professional. She embody respectability, but she's also embody piety. But you can also combine marketability and professionalism. By the way, this is one that is now prevalent in a lot of Western countries. You can make a marketable business professionalism. This is Natasha Finsky, for instance. I didn't interview them. It's just an example, illustration. So this is basically, look at her. Because she works in a beauty industry, and she wants to embody herself as like someone who's luxurious, marketable, but also still professional. So she can be herself like that. But also you can combine empowerment, respectability, and professionalism. Like, of course, our beloved Ibu Susi, right? She can be empowered. She can be whatever she wants. She can be herself without being afraid of whatever society tells around her. But then she can still be respectable and professional. But also combination of all of those. This first Western eye can be paradoxical. And I show this to my supervisor. They can't be like that. How can woman with hijab is showing marketability? But there you are in our Indonesian discourses. It happens, such as this beautiful lady over here, is Dian Pelangi, right? She embodied all of the East and West. Like, it's still possible to be achieved by a female. And actually, we should be very proud of ourselves that we allow a lot of different types of persona to occur in our society. And I really, really encourage our society to appreciate each and every one of the persona. And this is basically not a hosted list. It can be a combination of whatever you want. It's all right. And it's acceptable. And I think it's all right in our community, in our Indonesian society, to be able to embody ourselves as what we believe. We don't have to follow the script. We don't have to follow A, B, C, or D, but we can be, whatever we want. I mean, we can embody anything. And this is very, very important, especially for a lot of Western literature that still think that female with the hijab is not somebody who is respectable, or, say they're respectable, but they don't really professional. But hello, they're still subject to discrimination, for instance, in the West countries. In the Western countries, they're subject to discrimination. They have difficulty in, gaining employment and getting promotion and stuff like that. Hello, look at our example from Indonesia. They can be professional, but they can still be marketable, and it doesn't really matter. So this is the message that I want to share, not only for those in Indonesia, but also for the literature in the West. And of course, organizations have a lot of different roles, important roles, like, for instance, they discipline the feminine roles, discipline their feminine embodiment. They can regulate who you can be. For instance, let's say if you're going to work in a public organization, let's say in a university, probably you won't be like Dian Pelangi like this. Okay, probably, but you can be, but probably you won't, something like that. So organizations actually have kind of like disciplining roles to construct and to control the acceptable femininity, not only the embodiment side of it, but also the feminine role of it. And this is something that really organizations should do, should they want to improve the women's participation in their organization, women's opportunity for leadership in their organization, something like that. So what have we learned from here? So the first one is that the first question that I asked you guys, why do women leaders contestation still in Indonesian society, like a Muslim society like Indonesia? Is that because Islam is sexist? And I say it's not as simple, because the contestation of women leadership roles in Indonesia is actually located within the ideological war between the East and the West. Why do I say this? Remember when I discussed the data from the VOAE? They actually attack feminism as something coming from the West. It's a toxic, it's not suitable for Indonesian. Therefore, Indonesian women have to stay at home, nothing at all, like women in Saudi, basically. But we have to step back and think critically about it. Why? Saudi Arabia is not Indonesia. We have our own femininity. We have our own emancipation movement since Kartini. Okay? We have. Why do we have to look at the people from Saudi who now just allow the people to drive? We have our own emancipation and we moved like much in advance rather than people in Saudi. Why do we have to look at those people from out there like that? Okay, so it's actually just a war of ideology, and by doing that, they're kind of doing some paradoxical thing, a dangerous thing, because they want to reject colonialism, which is true. We have been colonized by the Dutch for 350 years, and afterwards we are, like kind of dominated by Western cultures in terms of everything. But then there are a group of people that feel, no, don't adopt Western culture, but adopt this instead. But they're taking it from other country as well. So it means the same. It's the same colonialization. It's the same imperialism. Where is your identity? Where is Indonesian identity? Okay, so this is a message that I want to give to you. And then also, women can reject the dialectical opposition. If you disagree with things, you don't have to follow them. Okay, you can be your own person. And also, the feminine embodiment. This is also important for a lot of people who thinks that women who are wearing a hijab, especially Western people, think that they are forced to do so. Well, there are a lot of people that are forced to do so, but there are a lot of people that chose to do so as well. So it's a form of expressing their agentic capability. So this is not just one side of the issue. This is a complex issue, and we have to acknowledge this is a complex issue. And then, of course, organizations have important roles in looking at this. So we have to ensure that organizations know that sometimes they are not aware that they are still sexist. This is very important. They still think that, oh no, we support women leadership. But then they accidentally give like a different assignment for female leaders and men leaders. These are true and women don't resist that. Because they're not aware that this is a form of discrimination. I mean, if they don't want to, that's fine. But if they want something, they don't have to be, discriminated just because of the gender. So organizations need really to be aware on this. And then if we want to be triumphant in terms of our feminist thinking, we have to ensure that we exert our influence, not only in the macro levels, but also in the organization level or in the meso levels, but also in our day-to-day. Talk to your friends, use your social media to promote the acceptable form of femininity. I mean, the empowered femininity. So I think that's all the results of my study that I've been doing so far in 4 years. Maybe it's not as wow as I thought it would be at the beginning, but I'm still very happy that I can make a coherent thought about it. So questions and answers are appreciated, and thank you so much for tuning in and going to my presentation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fitri, for your amazing presentation. Wow, it's been well delivered, right? So we as well, it broadened our mind as well, to be honest, to know more about the sensitivity, because we know some of the in our society, right? I know I mentioned one of the keywords that I think it is one of the best from your presentation, just with this. That is, women can be leader regardless whatever. I really love that statement. So we have the first question from Mr. Gunawan Tanuwijaya. To Bu Fitri, is there any cases of women with disability being discriminated in Indonesia or in Australia? Do you have any suggestion? That gender mindset in Indonesia? So please.
Yeah, so I don't aware of that. Probably there are, but maybe Mbak Gunawan probably will be more knowledge in terms of the disability part. But I recently read news that talked about female that can be leaders, not discriminated against. But I think it's not a big it's not a big issue in a society in terms of it's not going into the media. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So that's why we don't really know whether it's. I think I'm very sure. I'm very sure they are, because it's still the nature of things. And I'm not aware with things in Australia, because in Australia things are a little bit more progressive, as we know, and they can really they can actually, what do you call it, contest. If you feel that you are discriminated against, they can contest, they can sue the organizations, and you can win. And there are a lot of lawyers who can do that for you. But unfortunately, it hasn't been done. But I think I kind of recall news. Maybe someone can, maybe Mas Yoga can remember as well. There is a kind of something that happens like a long time ago somewhere in East Indonesia or something, but I can't remember. Maybe anyone. But I feel that it's something, and it made me really angry as well. I think it's in 2018. Oh, but that wasn't about the discrimination. It's about, you know, a sexual harassment, but it's still. But I think there are a lot of people that are like that, and even if our constitution as well still say that you have to be able-bodied to be leaders in a lot of different things. So I think that's also one of the things that we have to really think about in the future if we want to change, you know, the society to better in terms of, you know, the progressive values of gender. I think that's my Mas Yoga.
Because we know as well in Indonesia we have still many challenges, right? In terms of also for the general disability as well, we still need to do more in terms of treat them equal to all of us here. And also there are many as well. Send a greetings to Mrs. Fitri. Thank you very much. From Mrs. Arimbi, Mrs. Endang, Mr. Faiz as well. And also there is Mr. Yudi Saparudin from Dinas Pendidikan Provinsi Jawa Barat. Thank you very much, Mr. Yudi, for coming and join our session today. Hopefully, it will give us a new insight, right? And I will move to next question, Mrs. Fitri. It's coming from from Mrs. Yanwar Primanda. Very nice study, Mbak Fitri. What do you think about the influence of culture in women leadership contestation in Indonesia? Because some part of Indonesia also follow the matrilineality principle, right?
I think that's really interesting piece of thinking and questions as well, Ms. Yanwar. So I think being matrilineality, sorry, it's difficult to say. It doesn't guarantee that people can have progressive values in terms of allowing women to be leaders. I mean, let's say the example of Minangkabau. They are matrilineal in terms of, you know, women can have rights to hold the family, correct me if I'm wrong, the family, what is it called? Fund or something. They are the head of the family, right? And then they, you know, when you do the naming convention, you're going to be following the marga of the female matriarch in the family. So I think that's true, but I haven't been aware of studies that comparing cultures acceptance towards, although it came across to me as well, but we have to know that in Indonesia, culture is intertwined with religion. Cultural values intertwine with the religious values. So you can be progressive when you are coming from, let's say, Minangkabau, which I think 90% is, maybe 99% is Muslim. It's actually considered as a culture which with Islam that is like intertwined. But so which part of values that you follow, it's gonna be very difficult. They can mix together. And we also know that Islam itself, I mean, the interpretation of Islam. I'm not an expert in the religion, but the interpretation of that Islam as well is also different from group to group, people to people. And then, so what I mean to say by this is that it maybe it's just speculative in my side, but because of the intertwinement of cultures and religious values, and people and a group of people can have different interpretation of that as well. So they can also vary across Indonesia as well. So I don't really know whether, I mean, I haven't been aware if there is any study that comparing between culture, but because my assumption, this is like also the flow of my research, because the Indonesian itself is so big and so diverse, it's impossible to take everything into account. So what I take into account in terms of culture is that dominant culture, which is Javanese culture and Muslim culture, but I also acknowledge that each of individual cultures have different way of thinking. But also one thing we need to remember is that even if you are from Minangkabau and you have the matriarchy value in your life, you also need to remember that you also have a multiple identity. You also have intersectional identity. You can be Muslim, Minangkabau, and you can be or whatever. Or if you're Christian, you can be Chinese Christian, Buddhist Christian. You can be Papuan Muslim. It's possible. Like every possible intersectional identity will be able to create different kind of understanding of this issue, because this is not as simple as that. So if you are aware of the influence of culture in, women perception of women leadership, and can you please shoot me a message on the comments so that I can check the article, and that will be very interesting to see. But my view is that it's a intermeshing of different identities. What we call is, in the feminist view, is as intersectional identity. Yeah, like that. And it can give different meanings of way of things, and you can't really, unless there is a study of that, we can't really have a look at that in one specific culture. We have to, have a look at the intersections of culture, religion, and age and stuff like that. Yeah.
True. Thank you very much for the response, Mrs. Fitri. So hopefully it can answer the question from Mrs. Januar. And also following the question from Mrs. Januar, I think Mrs. Fitri mentioned earlier about femininity is constructed by society, right? And following the question that our culture really influence women in Indonesia to be leader, how to encourage maybe the women that still feel trapped by materiality, for example, and so
That's
they
right.
don't so they feel discouraged to lead, to be able to show their potential. Then what do you think about this, Mrs. Fitri?
This is really, really interesting studies. And I actually asked some women who are leaders in big banks and organizations, and they basically say there are a lot of female that are very smart and then they're really, really capable, but they're just not willing to be leaders. It's just facts. And in terms of progressions, we have what we call it as a pipeline, where a lot of women in the bottom, but then there are not many in the top. Why is that problem? I think for a lot of these women, they basically say, oh, they just don't want to show off and something like that, which is true. Our culture, Indonesian culture, especially like cultures, I'm going to say cultures because it's more than one culture. We can really appreciate women's submissiveness, women femininity, as you have to be like, you have to be like, you don't speak aloud. When you speak aloud, you're considered as, oh, she's so aggressive, I got that a lot because I speak a lot and I speak my mind. So I get that a lot. Like, she's so aggressive. She must be someone from social science or something like that, which that doesn't matter. I don't mind. But then, so I think the problem is not from women themselves. I mean, it's more than from women themselves. Don't blame the female the young people who doesn't want to go forward, because it's not as simple as that. As I mentioned, it's a socially constructed. We have to start bit by bit, start by education, like trying to ensure that from the preschool, that men and women can have the same competence. They are created differently biologically. There's no doubt in that. But when you get enough education and you have enough competence, it doesn't mean that you can't be leaders. And I read some comment there in the YouTube channel that says, I heard during COVID situation, female leaders perform way better than male leaders. Yes, that's true. That's true. It's not I say that. It's just something that is true. Let's have a look at New Zealand with Jacinta Ardern. Do you know they have 0 cases Like now after they like initial spike and then go no cases and then second wave and then that's all. And you know, in Queensland where I live now, it's almost like nothing. It almost like everything is excellent. Like I feel so safe here. Can you imagine living in America? Donald Trump. Oh my God, it's so crazy. Like can't even think about it. And a lot of other female leaders perform better in dealing with the pandemic, which is true. This is a fact. And we can see from the data, from the statistics. So it means being women probably makes you different in terms of your appearance, your body, that you can, what do you call it? You can have a baby. Like, I don't think you can have a baby, Mas Yoga. I mean, yourself, you can't carry a baby, but I can. You know what I mean? But that's just your bodily function. It doesn't mean you have less brain than men. It doesn't mean that you have less competence with enough education. And I think it can be done. Like look at other countries whose women are leaders. They are still perform very well. And then that's one from education. Second, because I'm talking about organization itself has to be really aware, because a lot of the time they just say, no, we don't discriminate here. We don't do gender here. Everything's perfect. Men and women can be leaders equally. That's all. But they don't see when there are still a lot of micro practices that can be considered as discriminatory. For instance, when you talk about, what do you call it? Tunjangan. This is not from my view, but from participants' view. A lot of tunjangan are still given only to men who got married because they considered as the head of family. But what about if the female is divorcee? If her husband passed away? If if she's adopted someone? Like, isn't she, allowed to have a tunjangan as well? So there is a micro practice that can also, a form of like discrimination, but nobody aware of that. And also assumption. Oh, perempuan itu nggak boleh keluar dari kota tempat tinggal. This is a lot of examples from a lot of my participants. But they wanted to go to other places to develop their knowledge. But they say, no, women better to stay at their home organizations, not going anywhere. Well, rather than creating that kind of policy that kind of like already made an assumption about what women want, why don't you just ask themselves first? Treat them equally. If they don't want it, let it be. If they want it, then that's good. You know what I mean? So I think we have to be really sensitive in here, because being women doesn't mean that you're less stupid than men. Being women doesn't mean that you have less competence than men. Let's have a look at the COVID example. I think that's a really good example. Thank you for the person who mentioned that in the comment section.
So unfortunately for the audience, due to the time limitation, we don't able to show all of your questions. I would like to invite speaker again. Hello, Mrs. Sari. See you again. So I think now, before we close this session, then we will move to session 3 after this. I would like to both of you give closing statement to our session today. Maybe start from Mrs. Sari first. Please give your closing statement. Thank you.
Yeah, I just would like to give a short statement. Hopefully, with my presentation, I can introduce the phytopathology word to the young generation, and hopefully, we can love about the plant disease word and plant pathology as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Sari. So we will know, maybe in the future we can see better Chile, right? In the future.
Yeah.
Now move to the Mrs. Fitri. Please deliver your closing statement for our session today. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for coming to my sessions. It's been a really, really good journey for me, and thank you for coming here and listen to my research. And I also hope that not only female but also male can have more awareness about gender sensitivity issues in their organizations, and hopefully build a better Indonesia which is more inclusive and friendly towards female leaders. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for the both speaker. Please give applause, and maybe we can have a virtual hug, right? Because due to COVID. Today, So don't go anywhere for the audience. After this, we will have the session 3 that will be moderated by Mr. Hardian Maulana. And also we will have the both speaker, that is Muhammad Liberty Arisurya and also Michael Aswin Winardi. That we will talk about radicalization and also conflict management. So I think that all from the session 2. My name is Yogantara. Thank you very much. See you again next time. See you.